Her bondmate couldn't move, but the human refused to let him die. The silent plea. The emergency klaxons shrieked through the diplomatic wing of Outpost Helios as Dr. Nadia Khoury ran against the tide of evacuating personnel. The explosion had ripped through the central chamber just minutes ago, during what should have been a landmark peace negotiation between the Centauri Confederation and the Terran Alliance. "Doctor, you need to evacuate now." A security officer grabbed her arm, his face streaked with soot. Nadia pulled away. "My medical scanner shows 3 life signs still in the eastern chamber. I'm not leaving them." The officer's comm unit crackled with orders to complete evacuation, but Nadia had already disappeared down the smoke-filled corridor. Her breather mask hissed with each intake as she followed the pulsing signals on her handheld scanner. The eastern chamber was barely recognizable. What had once been an elegant meeting hall now resembled a war zone. Twisted metal beams jutted from collapsed walls, and the air sparkled with strange energy, residual discharge from Centauri technology damaged. In the blast, Nadia spotted them immediately. A female Centauri kneeling beside a fallen male, her silver-blue skin luminescent even through the haze. The third life sign came from a human diplomat, pinned beneath debris nearby. "I'm Dr. Khoury," Nadia called, approaching cautiously. "I'm here to help." The female Centauri's head snapped up, her large opalescent eyes narrowing. "Stay back," she warned, her voice melodic despite the harshness of her words. "Tarek is fragile." Nadia's scanner told her everything she needed to know. The male Centauri, Tarek, had severe neural trauma. His readings were erratic, showing the telepathic equivalent of a hemorrhage. "I'm a xenoneurologist," Nadia said softly, taking another step forward. "I specialize in Centauri neural pathways. Please let me help him." The female hesitated, her slender fingers still protectively curved around her companion's face. "You cannot understand what is happening to him." "Maybe not completely," Nadia admitted, "but I know he's in a telepathic collapse. And I know you're his bondmate. You're the only thing keeping him tethered right now." Surprise flickered across the Centauri female's features. "You understand our bonding?" "I've studied it." "Your name?" "Celine," she replied after a moment. "I am Third Emissary Celine of House Varda." Nadia knelt across from her, scanner hovering over Tarek's still form. His breathing was shallow, and silver-tinged fluid leaked from his ears. A dangerous sign. "I need to stabilize him before we move him," Nadia explained, already reaching for her medical kit. "Then we need to get out. This section isn't safe." "I will not leave him," Celine stated, her tone making it clear this wasn't negotiable. Nadia worked quickly, administering neural stabilizers calibrated for Centauri physiology. She'd spent years studying their unique brain structure, the complex telepathic center that humans lacked. But theory was different from practice, especially with a bondmate present. "The human," Celine said suddenly, glancing toward the pinned diplomat. Nadia had almost forgotten. She checked her scanner again. "He's stable for now. Medical team is already working from the other side to reach him." A rumble shook the chamber, sending more debris cascading down. Nadia instinctively threw herself over Tarek's head and chest, protecting him from the falling particles. When she looked up, Celine was staring at her with an unreadable expression. "You would risk yourself for him." The Centauri's voice had lost some of its edge. "That's my job," Nadia replied. But even as she said it, she knew it was more than duty. Something about the deep connection between these two beings, the way Selena refused to abandon her mate despite the danger, resonated with Nadia on a profound level. The stabilizers seemed to be working. Tarek's readings became less chaotic, though he remained unconscious. "We need to move him now," Nadia insisted as her comm unit buzzed with increasingly urgent evacuation orders. For the first time, Selene looked uncertain. "Moving him could sever our mental connection." "If that happens—" "It won't," Nadia promised, meeting those alien eyes directly. I'll monitor his neural patterns constantly. You maintain your bond, and I'll handle everything else. After what seemed like an eternity, Selene nodded. Together they carefully lifted Tarek onto the emergency stretcher Nadia had brought. As they navigated the treacherous path back toward safety, Nadia found herself studying Selene's face, the determined set of her jaw, the unwavering focus in her eyes. The Centauri never once broke physical contact with her bondmate, keeping one hand on his chest as they moved. Nadia had treated many patients of various species, but never had she witnessed devotion like this. Something tightened in her chest, an emotion she couldn't quite name, a mixture of admiration and a strange, inexplicable longing. They reached the medical evacuation area just as another explosion rocked the outpost. "Get them to the trauma bay," Nadia ordered the waiting medical team, "and prep the neural immersion chamber." Director Hadrian stepped forward, his expression grim. "Dr. Khoury, we don't have authorization to treat a Centauri diplomat." Nadia fixed him with a steely gaze. "Then get it, because I'm not letting him die." Behind her, Selene watched silently, hope and fear battling in her luminous eyes. Against Protocol Director Hadrian's face hardened as he pulled Nadia aside, just out of earshot from Selene, who maintained her vigilant position beside Tarek's medical. "Pod, this isn't just about authorization, Doctor," he hissed. "This is about potentially causing an interstellar incident. Centauri neural systems are classified information. One mistake and you could turn a diplomatic crisis into war." Nadia glanced back at the medical pod where Tarek's vitals flickered ominously on the holographic display. "With all due respect, sir, leaving a high-ranking Centauri diplomat to die would guarantee that war. Our orders are to stabilize and transfer him to their vessel once it arrives." "He won't survive the transfer," Nadia countered, pulling up Tarek's neural scans on her tablet. "See these patterns? His telepathic center is collapsing. Without immediate intervention, his consciousness will fragment beyond recovery." Hadrian pinched the bridge of his nose. "And you're certain you can help him?" "I've spent 6 years studying Centauri neurology. I've developed experimental protocols specifically for telepathic trauma." "Experimental being the key word," Hadrian muttered. A soft voice interrupted them. "I would hear of these experiments." They turned to find Selene standing behind them, her silver-blue skin almost translucent under the harsh medical lights. Despite hours in the disaster zone, she maintained a regal bearing, though Nadia could see the exhaustion in her eyes. "Emissary." "Selene," Hadrian began, "I assure you we're doing everything." "You are doing nothing but waiting for my bondmate to die," Selene cut in, her melodic voice carrying an edge of steel. "I wish to hear what Dr. Khoury proposes." Nadia straightened. "Your people's neural structure includes a quantum-resonant telepathic center that our scanners can barely map. The trauma Tarek suffered has disrupted the coherence patterns. I've developed a targeted neural resonator that could potentially realign those patterns. This is untested technology," Hadrian warned. "On Centauri, yes," Nadia admitted. "But I've successfully used similar techniques on Medusan telepaths." "Medusans have rudimentary abilities compared to Centauri," Selena said. But there was curiosity in her voice now. "How would this resonator interact with our bond?" Nadia hesitated. "That's where it gets complicated. The bond between you is actually keeping him alive right now, but it's not enough to heal him. My theory is that we could use your connection as a guide, a template to help restructure his damaged pathways." "You would need my participation," Selene realized. "Yes, and it would be intimate. I'd need to monitor both your neural patterns simultaneously." A charged silence fell between them. Nadia was acutely aware of crossing into territory few humans had been permitted to explore. Centauri considered their bonding sacred, private. "The Centauri vessel will arrive in 18 hours, Hadrian reminded. "Them. He doesn't have 18 hours, Nadia replied. not breaking eye contact with Celine. The Centauri emissary stepped closer to Nadia, studying her face with unsettling intensity. "You truly believe you can save him?" "I believe I can try," Nadia answered honestly. "And I believe it's his only chance." Celine's gaze shifted to Tarek's unconscious form, her expression softening with such naked love that Nadia felt like an intruder witnessing it. "Prepare your equipment, Doctor," Celine finally said. "I consent to your procedure." "Emissary Celine," Hadrian began. "The decision is made," Celine interrupted. "I speak with the authority of House Varda. Any consequences will fall to me alone." Hadrian looked between them, then sighed in resignation. "You have 12 hours, Dr. Khoury. After that, we transfer him regardless of condition." Once he left, Nadia quickly mobilized her team, converting the trauma bay into a neural lab. Technicians installed the resonator equipment while Nadia prepared the specialized nanoprobes that would map Tarek's damaged neural pathways. Throughout the preparations, Selene remained by Tarek's side, one slender hand resting on his chest. Occasionally, she would close her eyes, her features tensing as if engaged in some internal struggle. "You're trying to reach him," Nadia observed. During a quiet moment, Selene opened her eyes. "Yes. I can sense him, but distantly. Like a voice calling from across a vast chasm." "That's good," Nadia assured her. "It means his consciousness is still intact, just disconnected. Our bonding should prevent such disconnection," Selene said, frustration evident in her voice. "I should be able to bring him back." Nadia carefully adjusted one of Tarek's monitors. "Bonds like yours fascinate me. We have nothing comparable in human neurology." "It is more than neurology," Selene replied. "It is—" She paused, searching for words. "There is no precise translation. The closest would be soul tethering." "That sounds beautiful," Nadia said softly. "It is beautiful and terrible." Celine's fingers traced the contours of Tarek's face. To be so connected that one cannot imagine existence without the other. Nadia watched the tender gesture, feeling a strange ache in her chest. "I've never experienced anything like that." "Many humans seem to prefer independence," Selene observed. "Not all of us," Nadia replied, more quietly than she intended. Their eyes met briefly, an unexpected moment of understanding passing between them. The moment was broken when one of the technicians approached. "Dr. Khoury, the resonator is calibrated and ready." "Thank you, Javier." Nadia turned back to Selene. "We should begin. Are you ready?" Selene nodded, her composure returning. "What must I do?" Nadia guided her to a reclining chair positioned beside Tarek's pod. "Lie here. The resonator will create a field encompassing both of you. I'll be monitoring from that station, adjusting the parameters as needed." As Selene settled into the chair, Nadia attached neural sensors to her temples. The Centauri's skin was surprisingly warm beneath her fingers. "These won't hurt," Nadia assured her. "They just read your neural patterns." "I am not concerned with pain," Selene said. "Only with results." Nadia completed the preparations, then took her position at the control console. The resonator hummed to life, generating a shimmering field around both Centauri. "I'm going to start at a low frequency," Nadia explained. "You'll feel a subtle vibration in your mind. Try to focus on your bond with Tarek. Imagine it as a path or a bridge." Selene closed her eyes, her breathing becoming measured and deep. Monitors displayed cascading patterns of neural activity. Selene's organized and rhythmic, Tarek's chaotic and fragmented. Nadia adjusted the resonator, carefully bringing the frequencies closer together. "I feel him," Selene whispered suddenly. "More clearly now." Encouraged, Nadia increased the power. The patterns began to synchronize, Tarek's gradually steadying, to match Celine's. Then everything went wrong. Tarek's body arched violently, alarms blaring as his neural patterns splintered into jagged, discordant spikes. Simultaneously, Celine cried out, her own readings fluctuating wildly. "Shutting down!" Nadia called, frantically disengaging the resonator. The shimmering field collapsed. Nadia rushed to Celine, who had slumped in her chair, breathing heavily. "I'm sorry," Nadia said, checking her vitals. "Are you all right?" Celine's eyes opened, filled with a mixture of pain and determination. His defenses, they reject the artificial synchronization. Nadia glanced at Tarek's readings, which were even more unstable than before. Guilt and frustration washed over her. "I miscalculated." "No," Celine said firmly, grasping Nadia's wrist with surprising strength. "There is another way, but it requires trust." "What do you mean?" "Your technology cannot bridge the gap alone," Celine explained. "But perhaps we can." "We?" Nadia repeated, confused. Celine's opalescent eyes seemed to see through her. "Your mind, my bond, together." Nadia stared at her, understanding dawning. "You want to create a telepathic link between us?" "A temporary one," Celine clarified. "I would serve as conduit between you and Tarek, your knowledge guided by my connection." "That's never been done," Nadia breathed. "Human minds aren't structured for telepathy." "Perhaps not naturally," Celine agreed. "But with the resonator assisting, it was reckless, unprecedented, exactly the kind of protocol violation that could end Nadia's career." But as she looked at Tarek's failing vitals, at Celine's desperate hope, she knew her decision was already made. "Tell me what to do," she said. Midnight Revelations. The medical bay hummed with the soft, rhythmic pulse of monitoring equipment. The main lights had been dimmed to night cycle levels, leaving only the blue-green glow of screens and the subtle shimmer of the modified neural resonator field. 3 hours had passed since their first attempt at the unprecedented human-Centauri neural link. Nadia sat beside the console, rubbing her temples where the specialized interface nodes remained attached. Her head throbbed with a dull ache, an after-effect of the partial connection they'd managed to establish before her human physiology had forcibly disconnected. "You should rest," Celine observed from her position beside Tarek. In the low light, her silver-blue skin seemed almost luminescent, casting subtle patterns across her bondmate's still features. "I could say the same to you," Nadia replied with a tired smile. "You haven't left his side in nearly 20 hours. Centauri require less sleep than humans." "That's not entirely true," Nadia countered gently. "Your physiology allows you to enter brief meditative states that simulate rest, but extended consciousness takes a toll even on Centauri." Celine tilted her head slightly, her opalescent eyes studying Nadia with renewed interest. "Your knowledge of my species is unexpected. I told you I've specialized in Centauri neurology. That explains clinical knowledge, not cultural understanding." Celine's voice carried a note of curiosity. "Few humans differentiate between our biological capabilities and our cultural practices." Nadia adjusted one of Tarek's monitors before answering. "I had a mentor, Dr. Elio Fernandez. He spent a decade on Centauri Prime as part of the first scientific exchange program." "I know of him," Celine said with evident surprise. "He was considered unusually perceptive for a human. He taught me that understanding physiology without context is like studying a ship's engine without knowing where it's meant to go." Nadia smiled at the memory. "He used to say the Centauri taught him to see beyond the immediate." A comfortable silence fell between them. Nadia checked Tarek's neural readings, noting with cautious optimism that the patterns had stabilized somewhat since their partial link attempt. "May I ask you something personal?" Nadia ventured after a while. Celine inclined her head slightly in assent. "How did you and Tarek meet? I know bonding among Centauri is significant." For a moment, Nadia thought she had overstepped. Selani's expression became distant, her gaze fixed on some point beyond the confines of the medical bay. Just as Nadia was about to apologize, Celine spoke. "We were adversaries first," she said, her melodic voice soft with remembrance. "I represented House Varda in a territorial dispute. He spoke for House Thelian. For 3 cycles, we argued our positions before the confluence." Nadia leaned forward, unexpectedly captivated. "What changed?" "A diplomatic summit on Proxima Station. We were assigned adjacent quarters due to an administrative error." A faint smile curved Selene's lips. "The partition between our balconies was minimal. One night I found him watching the binary sunset, reciting poetry to himself. Not political, rhetoric, or strategic positions, but ancient verses about beauty and transience." "You saw a different side of him," Nadia suggested. "I saw him," Selene corrected. "Not the representative of an opposing house, but a being capable of appreciating the same beauty I did." Her fingers gently traced the contours of Tarek's face. "We spoke until dawn, about art, philosophy, the weight of expectations our houses placed upon us." "And then?" "Then we returned to our dispute the next day as if nothing had changed." Celine's eyes gleamed with amusement. "But everything had. We began meeting secretly, neutral locations, private communications. For nearly a year we lived. Double lives." "That must have been difficult," Nadia said. "It was exhilarating," Selene countered, "and ultimately impossible to sustain. When the resonance between us began, the early stages of bonding, we could no longer hide our connection. Neural compatibility is involuntary." Nadia nodded, fascinated. "So, what happened when your houses discovered the truth?" "There was opposition, naturally. Talks of severing the developing bond, of reassignments to opposite ends of Centauri space." Celine's expression hardened momentarily. "We made it clear such measures would result in our formal separation from our houses. Neither House Varda nor House Thelian was prepared to lose their representatives." "So, they accepted your bonding?" "They negotiated it," Selene said with a hint of irony. "The very dispute that had opposed us became the framework for our union, a symbolic joining of territories along with our minds." "Politics and romance," Nadia mused. "Humans aren't so different in that regard." Selena studied her with those penetrating eyes. "And you, Dr. Curie? What romantic entanglements has politics brought to your life?" The question caught Nadia off guard. She laughed softly, running a hand through her dark hair. "Nothing so dramatic as yours. My work has always come first." "Always?" "There was someone once," Nadia admitted, surprising herself with her candor. "Darius, a fellow researcher. We were developing early versions of the neural resonator technology together." "What happened?" "He received an opportunity to lead a prestigious project on Earth. I was offered a position here, at the frontier of interspecies medicine." Nadia shrugged, the old pain dulled by time. "We both chose our work." "You regret this choice?" "Not regret, exactly." Nadia's gaze drifted to the stars visible through the viewport. "Sometimes I wonder if I've spent so much time studying connections between minds that I've forgotten how to create connections of my own." The confession hung in the air between them, unexpectedly intimate. Selene was quiet for a long moment. "The Centauri have a concept," she finally said. "Ithera naveth." It translates roughly to the path that finds you when you cease searching for it. Nadia smiled. "That's beautiful." "It is truth," Selene replied simply. Her attention returned to Tarek, her expression softening. "He would like you, I think. Your determination, your willingness to challenge boundaries." "I look forward to meeting him properly," Nadia said, infusing her voice with a confidence she desperately wanted to feel. An alert chimed softly from the console, interrupting their conversation. Nadia checked the readings, her exhaustion momentarily Forgotten. His neural patterns are shifting, she explained, quickly adjusting several parameters. The resonator field is having an effect, even at this low intensity. Celine closed her eyes, her features concentrating. Yes. I can sense a strengthening in our bond, faint but present. This could be the window we need. Nadia began recalibrating the interface nodes on her own temples. We should try the connection again while his patterns are more receptive. You are exhausted, Celine pointed out. Another attempt could harm you. I've modified the interface, Nadia explained, already prepping the system. It should create a more gradual merger this time, less shock to my neural pathways. Celine stood and approached Nadia, stopping closer than Centauri typically would to humans, close enough that Nadia could sense the subtle warmth radiating from her skin. Why do you risk yourself this way? Celine asked, her voice barely above a whisper. For strangers. For people not your own? Nadia met her gaze steadily. Because suffering doesn't recognize species boundaries. Because I can help. There is more, Celine observed, her perception uncomfortable in its accuracy. Nadia hesitated, then nodded. When I was young, my brother had a traumatic brain injury. The doctors said he would never wake up, never recover. My parents accepted this. I didn't. I was 14, reading medical journals, pestering specialists. She smiled faintly at the memory. Eventually, I found a doctor willing to try an experimental treatment. And your brother? He teaches quantum physics now, Nadia said, her pride evident. The human brain has remarkable plasticity. I suspect Centauri minds have even greater potential for healing, given the right catalyst. Understanding passed between them, a moment of connection that transcended their biological differences. Let us proceed then, Celine said, returning to her position beside Tarek. Nadia initiated the modified protocol, the resonator field intensifying around them. As the neural interface activated, she felt the now familiar pressure at the edges of her consciousness, like standing at the threshold of an enormous space she could sense but not fully perceive. Remember, Celine instructed, her voice seeming to come from both inside and outside Nadia's mind. Do not force the connection. Imagine yourself as water flowing around obstacles, not breaking through them. Nadia closed her eyes, focusing on the metaphor. She visualized her consciousness as a gentle current, seeking the path of least resistance toward the brilliant point of light that represented Celine's mind. Gradually, the pressure gave way to a sensation of expansion, of boundaries, becoming permeable. Through Celine, she caught glimpses of Tarek, not his physical form, but the essence of his consciousness, fragmented yet still cohesive at its deepest levels. I can see him, Nadia whispered, unsure if she spoke aloud or merely thought the words. I can see where the pathways are disrupted. Guide me, Celine's presence urged. Show me what needs healing. Together, they began the delicate work of reconstruction, Nadia's knowledge directing, Celine's bond providing the framework, both of their minds serving as conduits for the healing energy of the resonator field. In that shared mental space, boundaries blurred. Memories, emotions, and sensations flowed between them, not fully transparent, but permeable enough that Nadia caught glimpses of Celine's deep love for Tarek, her fear of losing him, her growing trust in the human doctor who defied protocols to help them. And Celine, in turn, glimpsed Nadia's dedication, her loneliness, her yearning for the kind of profound connection the Centauri shared with their bondmates. When the interface finally disengaged, Nadia found herself trembling, tears streaming down her face, though she couldn't have explained why. Across from her, Celine's opalescent eyes shimmered with a similar emotional overflow. Between them, on the medical pod's monitors, Tarek's neural patterns had stabilized into a coherent rhythm for the first time since the explosion. It's working, Nadia breathed, hardly daring to believe the readings. It's actually working. Breaking through morning light streamed through the viewport of the medical bay, painting everything in pale gold. Nadia studied the latest neural scans with cautious optimism. It had been 4 days since their first successful link, and Tarek's readings showed unmistakable improvement. Fragmented pathways gradually reconnecting, damaged areas beginning to regenerate. "Your technique is working beyond my expectations," Dr. Fayez commented, examining the comparative scans. As the outpost's chief medical officer, he had initially been skeptical of Nadia's experimental approach, but now couldn't deny the results. "It's not just my technique," Nadia replied, glancing toward the recovery alcove where Celine sat in quiet meditation beside Tarek's pod. "Without her bond, we'd have nothing to build upon." Dr. Fayez lowered his voice. "The Centauri vessel arrives tomorrow. They're sending their own medical team to evaluate him for transfer." Nadia tensed. "He's not ready for transfer. The neural pathways are still too fragile. Director Hadrian has already approved it. The diplomatic situation is deteriorating. Both sides are using this incident to leverage demands." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "I know you've become invested in this case." "It's not about investment," Nadia insisted. "It's about medicine. Moving him now could undo everything we've accomplished." "Then I suggest you make that very clear to the Centauri medical team when they arrive." With a sympathetic nod, Dr. Fayez departed, leaving Nadia alone with her concerns. She approached the recovery alcove quietly, not wanting to disturb Selene's meditation. Over the past days, their shared mental work had created a peculiar intimacy between them. Though they no longer maintained the neural link outside their healing sessions, echoes of connection lingered. Moments when Nadia could almost sense Selene's emotions, or when the Centauri seemed to respond to thoughts Nadia hadn't voiced. Selene opened her eyes as Nadia drew near, as if she had sensed her presence. "You are troubled." "The Centauri medical vessel arrives tomorrow," Nadia explained, taking a seat across from her. "They'll want to transfer Tarek to their facilities. This concerns you. His neural pathways are still regenerating. A transfer could disrupt the process, possibly cause permanent damage." Nadia hesitated. "But I understand if you prefer having him treated by your own people." Selene's expression remained calm, but Nadia had learned to read the subtle shifts in her eyes, the slight darkening that indicated distress. "My preference is for whatever will heal him most effectively," Selene said carefully. "Our physicians are skilled, but none have your specialized knowledge or—" She paused. "None have shared consciousness with him as you have." The acknowledgement warmed Nadia unexpectedly. "I'll speak with their medical team, explain the situation." "As will I," Selene affirmed. Her gaze dropped to Tarek's still face, her fingers lightly tracing the contours of his jawline. "There has been another development." "What?" "Is it?" During my meditation I sensed awareness, brief, fragmented, but unmistakable. He's beginning to perceive again. Nadia straightened, excitement coursing through her. "That's incredible progress. We should initiate another link session immediately, while his consciousness is more accessible." Selene nodded, but there was hesitation in her movement. "Nadia." It was the first time she had used the doctor's given name. "There is something you should understand before we proceed further." "What is it?" "The mental connection we have established. It has consequences neither of us anticipated." Selene's eyes met hers directly. "In Centauri culture, the sharing of consciousness is intimate, sacred, typically only experienced between bondmates." Nadia felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I didn't realize—" "How could you?" Selene interrupted gently. "And I chose not to explain fully, knowing it might cause you to hesitate when hesitation could cost Tarek's life." "Are you saying our connection is inappropriate by Centauri standards?" "I am saying it is significant," Selene clarified. The resonances between our minds have created patterns similar to early bonding. Not as deep or permanent as what exists between Tarek and myself, but recognizable. Nadia's mind raced with implications. Will this interfere with your bond with him? No, Celine said with certainty. Centauri bonds are not exclusive by necessity. In our ancient history, communal bonds between small groups were common. Her expression softened. What concerns me is not the connection itself, but your understanding of it. Humans seem to view such intimacy differently. Nadia found herself at a loss for words. The truth was, she had felt the growing connection between them, had even welcomed it, though she barely understood its nature. The healing sessions had become more than medical procedures. They had become moments of profound sharing, of boundaries dissolving between species, between healer and diplomat, between strangers becoming something else entirely. I don't regret it, Nadia said finally. Whatever this connection is, it's helping save Tarek. That's what matters. Celine studied her face. Is that all that matters to you? The question hung between them, loaded with unspoken meaning. Before Nadia could formulate a response, the medical bay doors slid open as a technician entered. Dr. Khoury, Director Hadrian, has called an emergency briefing regarding tomorrow's transfer. Your presence is required immediately. Nadia nodded acknowledgement, then turned back to Selene. We'll continue this conversation later. For now, let's prepare for another link session when I return. The briefing dragged on for nearly 2 hours. Diplomatic protocols, security arrangements, contingency plans for various scenarios. Throughout, Nadia found her thoughts repeatedly drifting back to Selene, to their unfinished conversation, to the implications of a mental connection that transcended professional boundaries. When she finally returned to the medical bay, she found Selene standing at the viewport, her slender silhouette outlined against the stars. The Centauri turned as Nadia entered, and something in her expression made Nadia's heart quicken. Tarek is dreaming, Selene said without preamble. True dreams, not just neural activity. I can sense them. Nadia hurried to check the monitors, confirming Celine's assessment. The patterns had shifted into recognizable sleep rhythms, a dramatic improvement from the chaotic readings of days prior. This is remarkable progress, Nadia breathed. If he's reached dream state, conscious, awakening could follow within days. Because of you, Selene said, moving closer. Because you refused to accept limitations others deemed insurmountable. Because of us, Nadia corrected gently. Our connection made this possible. In the dim light of the night cycle medical bay, with only the soft glow of monitors and distant stars illuminating them, Selene reached out and took Nadia's hand. The touch sent a jolt through Nadia, warm, electric, and somehow familiar, as if they had touched 1,000 times before. Earlier, you asked if Tarek's healing was all that mattered to me, Nadia said softly. It's not. What's happening between us? I don't fully understand it, but I don't want to lose it when he recovers. Among my people, there is a saying, Selene replied, her melodic voice barely above a whisper. Kestara navil sevathan. Minds that have joined cannot truly. Separate, their eyes met in silent understanding. Slowly, giving Nadia every opportunity to withdraw, Selena raised her free hand to the doctor's face, her fingertips lightly tracing the contour of her cheek in the traditional Centauri gesture of affection. The monitors behind them suddenly erupted. With activity, Tarek's neural patterns spiking dramatically. They turned as one to see his eyelids fluttering, his fingers twitching with the first voluntary movement since the explosion. He's waking up, Nadia gasped, rushing to his side. Selene followed, her composure giving way to naked hope. Tarek, can you hear me? His eyes opened, disoriented at first, then focusing on Selene's face. His lips moved, forming words without sound. Nadia quickly adjusted his medical support systems, enabling his vocal capacity. "Selene," he whispered, his voice rough from disuse. His gaze shifted, finding Nadia. "And I know you. From the darkness. Your light guided me back." Nadia stared at him in astonishment. "You were aware of our link." Fragments, echoes. His eyes moved between them, a look of understanding dawning. "You formed a connection. I felt it, anchoring me." Selene took his hand, tears shimmering in her opalescent eyes. "Rest now. There will be time for explanations later." As Tarek drifted back to sleep, natural sleep this time, not unconsciousness, Nadia and Selene remained beside him, their hands finding each other across the medical pod, a bridge between worlds neither had expected to cross. 3 hearts. Entwined, the garden atrium of Outpost Helios bustled with diplomatic personnel, a celebration marking the successful conclusion of renewed peace negotiations between the Centauri Confederation and the Terran Alliance. 2 weeks had passed since Tarek's awakening, a recovery the medical community was already calling miraculous. From her quiet corner of the atrium, Nadia watched him move through the crowd, still thinner than before the incident, but standing, tall, his silver-blue skin regaining its healthy luster. Beside him, Selena navigated the political currents with practiced grace, though her eyes frequently sought out Nadia across the room. "Your patient appears to be thriving," Director Hadrian commented, approaching with 2 glasses of champagne. He offered one to Nadia. "The Centauri medical delegation is calling your neural resonator technique revolutionary. There's talk of a formal research partnership." "That would be welcome," Nadia replied, accepting the glass. "There's still so much we could learn from each other." Hadrian studied her face. "You seem hesitant. I would have expected you to be ecstatic about such an opportunity." Before she could respond, a melodic voice interrupted them. "Director Hadrian, might I borrow Dr. Khoury for a moment? There are several Centauri physicians eager to discuss her methodology." Selene stood before them, resplendent in formal diplomatic attire, her opalescent eyes betraying nothing of the complex emotions Nadia knew she harbored. "Of course, Emissary Selene," Hadrian acquiesced with a diplomatic smile. The hero of the hour should certainly make the rounds. As he departed, Selene guided Nadia not toward the cluster of Centauri physicians, but toward a secluded alcove where Tarek waited, away from the crowd's attention. "This celebration exhausts him, though he would never admit it," Selene explained, softly. "And we wish to speak with you privately." Tarek inclined his head in greeting as they approached. Though they had spent many hours together during his recovery, this was the first time they had been truly alone, away from medical staff and diplomatic observers. "Dr. Khoury," he began, his voice still carrying traces of its former weakness. "Nadia, I have not properly thanked you for what you did." "You don't need to thank me," Nadia insisted. "I was doing my job." "Your job was to stabilize me for transfer," Tarek countered gently. "Not to risk your career, your mind, on experimental procedures." His gaze was penetrating, reminiscent of Selene's. "Nor was it your job to form a mental connection with my bondmate." Nadia tensed slightly. "About that, peace," Tarek raised a hand. "I am not expressing disapproval, quite the opposite." Selene moved to stand beside him, their shoulders touching in the subtle way of bonded Centauri. "What Tarek means to say, somewhat obliquely, is that we have discussed what transpired during his healing, the connection that formed between us." "All 3 of us," Tarek clarified. "Though I was unconscious, the resonances you created have left their mark. I carry echoes of your mind, Nadia, just as you carry echoes of ours." Nadia's heart raced. She had sensed this persistent connection in the days following Tarek's recovery, moments of awareness that weren't her own, emotional impressions that seemed to come from elsewhere. But she had attributed it to residual effects that would fade with time. "The Centauri Confederation has asked me to remain here," Selene said, "as permanent liaison to the outpost. Tarek will join the scientific exchange program, focusing on neural research. You're staying?" Nadia couldn't keep the hope from her voice. "If that is amenable to you," Tarek replied, his expression softening. "The connection between us is unprecedented, a human mind bridged with a Centauri bonding pair. It deserves further exploration, both scientifically and—" He exchanged a glance with Selene. "Personally." "What Tarek is failing to articulate clearly," Selene said with fond exasperation, "is that we wish to explore the possibility of extending our bond to include you, if you are willing." Nadia stared at them, momentarily speechless. "Are you suggesting—" "A formal triadic bond has never been attempted between our species," Tarek acknowledged. "But then, neither had a neural link before you attempted it. This is not a decision to be made hastily," Selene added. "We have time to understand what has already begun between us." Nadia looked between them. Selene, whose mind had become a familiar landscape during their shared healing work. Tarek, whose consciousness she had helped rebuild, creating connections that apparently ran deeper than she had realized. The diplomatic implications alone would be significant, she said finally, her practical nature asserting itself. Tarek's lips curved in amusement. "As Selene could tell you, I have some experience with challenging diplomatic conventions. And I have experience with defying protocols." Nadia found herself smiling in return. Selene reached out, taking one of Nadia's hands in hers. After a moment's hesitation, Tarek did the same with her other hand. The contact sent a ripple of warmth through Nadia's mind, not the full immersion of their healing link, but a gentle resonance, like distant music. "We do not ask for an answer now," Selene assured her, "only that you remain open to possibility. To exploring what already exists between us," Tarek added. Beyond their secluded alcove, the celebration continued, humans and Centauri mingling in a harmony that had seemed impossible weeks ago. Director Hadrian was making an announcement about new cooperative initiatives, his voice carrying phrases like unprecedented partnership and bridging differences. Looking at her hands clasped within those of the two Centauri, Nadia felt a sense of rightness she couldn't explain through medical terminology or neural mapping. Whatever had begun between them, this impossible connection across species and custom, felt like the beginning of something profound, not just for them, but perhaps for others who would follow their path. "I think," she said carefully, "that I would like very much to see where this leads." Relief and joy flashed across both Centauri faces, subtle by human standards, but radiant to Nadia's newfound perception of their expressions. Selene squeezed her hand gently. "Then we begin, as we always have. One step at a time, one connection building upon another. With patience," Tarek added, "and with hope." As the three of them stood together in their quiet corner of celebration, Nadia thought about boundaries crossed and barriers dissolved, between minds, between species, between what was known and what remained to be discovered. The path ahead was uncharted, filled with challenges they could barely imagine, but they would face them together. Three minds that had touched in darkness, three hearts now inexorably entwined. In the vast expanse of space, on an outpost, at the edge of explored territory, something new had awakened. Not just Tarek from his neural coma, but a possibility that none of them had dreamed of before crisis had brought them together. And in that possibility lay the promise of connection deeper than any of them had known alone. Nadia looked into the eyes of her two companions and smiled. "One connection at a time," she agreed. "Beginning now."